Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. So as I started on this video, we were in the middle of a roughly 1 month drought on our farm with almost 3 full weeks in the 90-degree range, which is just the best. Now, obviously, for you folks out in drier regions, one hot, dry month hardly constitutes a drought for you, but for us here in Kentucky, Zone 6B/7A, it's really freaking dry. But on a recent Sunday, where the forecasters were telling us we were going to get rain, which don't get too excited, it didn't happen for at least several more days, I thought I would take this opportunity to check and see in the dry farmed areas of my farm, dry farmed being the term farmers use for areas where we do not use irrigation. I decided to check those areas and see where I could find moisture based on what no-till method we are using there. And there were a few surprises. So let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to show you several different plots with different no-till treatments, including our living pathways. But to be clear, this was not a super scientific experiment. I was walking around my farm that day like a good farmer does, because of course the best fertilizer is the farmer's footprints, coupled with good compost and living plant roots and reduced tillage, as the saying goes. I think that's how the saying goes. And anyway, I just realized, oh, some of these spots are doing better than others. I should investigate with a shovel. So although I did not use a tool to measure the exact moisture content because I own enough $150 tools that I almost never use or that are not at all necessary, looking at you, penetrometer, my approach was to effectively dig down to the rhizosphere and see if I could feel moisture, see it, and or if the soil just crumbled to dust in my fingers, which would be a sign of basically no soil moisture. I've got a few senses left. I may as well try to exercise them from time to time, right? So what I'll do is describe each plot and then the preparation to show you what I found in each, keeping in mind that it had not rained at our farm for almost 4 weeks when I shot this. 3 of those weeks were painfully hot, most days peaking in the mid 90-degree Fahrenheit range, or that would be like 32 to 35 degrees Celsius, so not cold. First up is our sweet corn and deep compost mulch. The preparation on this bed was that it was originally established with a deep compost mulch in 2021 and then remulched this season, 2024, with about 3 to 4 inches of mulching compost. It did not have a cover crop over the winter, but was planted to spinach in March. The sweet corn looks nice and dark and happy, and you may be like, Jesse, don't you always tell us to not use deep compost mulches for sweet corn because it's a waste of money? Yes, I do. But sometimes you got to break your own rules just to see what happens, and also sometimes you had an extra bed open until the late summer and wanted some dang sweet corn. What's interesting is contrasting how healthy the corn looks versus how dry the soil feels. But remember 2 things. 1, some percentage of the soil moisture is kept in the plant roots and the plants themselves, so I would not see it or feel it necessarily, but will see it or feel it over time. And 2, the looseness of no-till soil may allow for the roots to dig deeper than I am with the shovel, for moisture closer to 12 to 18 inches down below the surface. Effectively, we tend to think of the rhizosphere, that is where the majority of microbes and roots reside, as a depth of around 4 to 8 inches, like where my shovel is going. But with the good soil practices, the rhizosphere expands a bit, especially in the summer when the soil is warmer. Now, I didn't have a composted bed that didn't have a crop in it so that I could compare a fallow deep compost mulch versus a planted deep compost mulch, but I did have a compost pile area that I've used for many years. Needless to say, the soil beneath the compost pile was in perfect moisture. That's not a surprise, but the amount of compost there and the duration it has been there and been reapplied would not be financially or physically feasible on my garden scale. But clearly, the more compost, the better that soil moisture content retention is going to be. But the compost overall scores fairly high on our farm in terms of maintaining soil moisture. Emphasis on the our farm there. Context is everything in farming, and our context is that we are in central Kentucky on heavy clay that is now operating at around 4 to 5% soil organic matter, in that range, up from about 3% in 2021, depending on the bed. Now, let's move on to another sample. This next one was interesting because it's a plot that I've talked about before that I was just trying to manage with cover crops, like no compost mulches, no hay mulches or anything like that, just like, can I manage this entire plot with plants, including fertility? No outside mulches at all. It's also the worst plot I have in terms of compaction, so it was a funny choice for this experiment. And by June, any cover crop residue that was there is pretty much gone. Though I should say it was turnips, mustards, kales, and peas this past winter, not something fibrous like rye. Anyway, I mowed that, reformed the beds with a rotary plow, tarped it for 4 weeks, shoved the sweet potato slips in, and well, I was kind of surprised to see how well they were doing, considering sweet potato plants, especially when they're young, tend to melt when it gets super dry and hot. It's a Brazilian plant, but it's not a super plant. And I suppose that explains why, to some extent. Although it was definitely drier than most plots, I did feel and find some moisture below the surface, even in that non-mulched area, which wasn't as bad as I'd assumed. I cultivate the surface of these plots, which may help with the moisture retention, but obviously, if you can have a mulch in a place, I would have a mulch there. If you can't have a mulch though, because not everyone has access to affordable mulches, thus why I trial weird stuff like this, it does seem like a cover crop may help with moisture, even if it doesn't have much residue on the actual soil surface. That, in fact, brings us to the next sample where I found some intriguing results, at least. The areas that were cover cropped and the cover crop residue was left intact as a mulch. Unlike the compost mulch, which was 3 to 4 inches thick, the cover crop is really only 1 or 2 inches with gaps here or there, where the cover crop was perhaps thinner or laid down unevenly. Even still, the moisture in these beds far surpassed the moisture I found under deep composted beds, with the caveat I'll discuss presently. It wasn't just wet, but cool, and the moisture felt really well distributed. This area is also where I found the most earthworms, which is awesome, and now in retrospect, maybe I should have done a biological sample of these, so maybe that's for the future. Now, because you should always question the things you believe about the world and what could lead to changes in the conditions, I realized that one thing that could have affected this moisture retention is that I had a tarp in some of those areas to kill those cover crops for some of the drought time. About a week into the drought, I removed all the tarps. So to be fair to my observations, I checked 2 cover crop areas where I had vetch and rye that had not had a tarp for any amount of time. I simply smashed it down lazily with a BCS, and then in one of them planted our popcorn, which the kids call popcorn because my kids are a chip off the old block. And then in the other, I sowed a cover crop with popcorn, cilantro, and sweet alyssum because that plot is going out of production and into the business of making me some dang flowers and habitat for beneficials. The vetch did not die, so it looks like it will have vetch in both of those plots this winter as well, which I guess is fine. The rye did die really well though, but you know, it was ridiculously hot, which helped. Anyway, I checked those 2 areas that had never had a tarp, and there was indeed slightly less moisture in both than the tarped cover cropped areas. More on par with the compost mulch. So still good, but not quite as good as the tarps. So I do now obviously believe the tarping during some of the drought period played a role in retaining the moisture below the cover crop for slightly longer and perhaps reduce the evapotranspiration, basically how water moves from soil to atmosphere, which sometimes comes along with cover cropping. Of course, there is plenty of scientific evidence for cover crops, beneficial effects on soil moisture. After the fact, I dove into some of the research, and although cover crops is a very broad term and can be done a million different ways in a million different contexts, studies do show how they tend to improve water infiltration and availability and also moisture moderation through things like the aforementioned evapotranspiration, but they can also, when the timing is off, compete for moisture with the cash crop if planted too soon together with not enough moisture already present. Generally, however, for what I could find, the research does point towards what I saw in both the no residue and high residue areas, that cover crops are generally positive for soil moisture. Now, one type of no-till I didn't really get to compare that well was hay and or straw mulch, because I haven't put any fresh hay mulch down this season like I usually do. But anecdotally, my observations in the past have always been that under the hay mulch is always where I find some of the best soil moisture in a drought like this. And I had one spot that I had mulched in the winter with some leftover hay that looked dry on the surface, but the moisture content of the native soil below was fairly nice. I generally have a whole plot with hay mulch by this time of year, but since we dropped our farmer's market, as I described in the last video, and reduced our garden size, we don't have one of those this year. Anyway, a few other quick hits on plots and types of mulches that I wanted to test. First was this buckwheat that was sown into deep compost mulch. The soil felt very, very dry, but interestingly, the buckwheat didn't look thirsty or unhappy. This is also a fairly compacted area of the farm from previous land use, so I don't entirely know what to make of those observations, except that maybe the buckwheat, which I generally think of as a shallow-rooted crop, is digging down deeper than I expected for the moisture that it is clearly present somewhere, or in a few days it will start to yellow and die as it holds on for dear life. Next to the buckwheat, you can see one of our living pathways, so I figured while I was there, I would check that one out, which felt slightly more moist than the buckwheat, and the dew on the grass itself was thick, which made me wonder if the buckwheat was getting some of its moisture from the living pathway somehow. Not sure. Buckwheat does seem like it could get down with some, light thievery. In that same area is a bed that I mulched with a somewhat more weedy than expected leaf mold for okra. And anyway, the first thing I always notice when I mulch with leaf mulch is how cool the soil is below. It is so incredibly insulating, leaf mold or leaf mulch, which is made generally by lightly composting chopped up leaves with maybe some nitrogen source. The moisture was pretty decent and definitely better than the buckwheat and living pathways, but with far fewer plant roots to support, so perhaps that enabled the soil to hold on to moisture for slightly longer. It rained last night, so we are at least good for another week of hot weather. Anyway, that's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but to me it seemed clear that the mulches, especially when combined with a cover crop, are where it's at. And by it, I mean moisture. Anyway, like this video if you like this video. If you are not subscribed to this channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, you're awesome. If you appreciate our work, consider picking up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or a hat or other merch from no-tillgrowers.com. Sustain us by joining our Patreon page at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, or just hit that super thanks button. That always works. Super thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.